of what you say in the debate. What is a speaker telling us in a debate, really? So that would include their points, how well the points are maybe relevant to the debate at hand. For example, if we are debating, this house as the EAC would become one country, or this house as the EAC member states would become one country. So content in this sort of a debate will be things on, to start us off, maybe a bit of a historical analysis of what the EAC is about, why it exists, why it would be good if you're from the affirmative team, why it would be good for all these countries to break down their independence and their sovereignty to join up to form this one country called the EAC. So it is points or arguments which are relevant to the debate. That is really what content is. It's the crux of the arguments which are made by a speaker. Secondly, the second thing that we use to judge a speech is on style. So style really is on how you say what you're saying. How do you convey that content? How do you break it down to us? How do you do the analysis to convince us to buy into the idea of what you're selling? It's important. And I remember, Charity, my colleague, mentioned to you during the first session of the training that issues like accent are not really important in WSDC debate. We do not give any value to how well you speak the Queen's language. We're only interested in, are you making a sensible argument that is convincing enough for us to buy your side of the debate? If you're affirming this motion, are we more inclined to buy into this idea that Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda should break down their independent countries, or forego how they exist today as independent countries and form up this one single country called the East African Community? Your analysis and breakdown of that is quite really what forms that style, how you convey that content. Finally, what makes 20% of the scoring criteria is strategy. Strategy in a debate is quite important. At what point do you ask a POI? Sometimes, if you ask a very leading POI to the speaker, it could be very easy for the speaker to break down your POI and maybe, as a result, even your argument or the entire argument of your team. So speakers need to be strategic on what sort of POIs they ask, at what point they may be asked those POIs, how well those POIs are framed. There are POIs which speakers can ask to the speaker on stage, which are very good, could even disrupt the entire flow of thinking of the speaker currently on the stage. So as judges, when we are adjudicating, we should be very attentive, checking out for how the POIs were asked, what value were the askers of those POIs trying to get for themselves and for their team, to the detriment of the opposition or the other team. So other things could be on motion interpretation. There are speakers who might conveniently interpret or define words in particular ways that suits their line of argumentation. Speakers on the opposing team might fail to catch onto that and might fail to argue against that definition if it's skewed to the angle in which the team that is making the definition really wants the debate to go. So you should check out for those interesting interpretations of the motion, interesting definition of words, which help at the end of the day, if any way, to the team that makes those interesting definitions. Other teams might even define words against themselves and to their detriment, really. So it will be hurting to those teams. So as judges, it's quite important for you to also check out on that. So just to cover up on those three things, we're checking out for content. That is, what is the person telling us? What are you telling us, really? How relevant is it to the debate? How important is it to the debate? Is it convincing material such that we buy your line of argumentation? Secondly, is on style. This is how you say what you want to say. It's on how you analyze those particular issues that you're telling us, how you break it down to us such that we buy into your line of thinking and into your line of argumentation. And third and finally is on strategy. At what point do you ask POIs? How do you ask them? How do you define words? Are they of the best interest of your team? Are they against your team? And all of those things. So as judges, it's this it's this math that you should really follow. So on your score sheets, the ones that you'll get during the debates, it'll have a column that breaks down content. So you will categorize a speaker's speech on content, maybe 30, 25, whatever you think. Will also give you a scale. Generally, that's the next thing that I'm going to. Generally, the speaker scale in wild schools format is between 60 and 80. 80 being an excellent speech, and 60 really being a below average speech. 70 then becomes the average speech. So, whereas main speeches are marked out of 100, the maximum also speakers really could gather is 80. So, an exceptional speech only makes up for 80, one that does not have flaws, one that has covered all the content that was expected, one that was properly convincing, one that responded adequately to maybe the other lines of arguments which were raised by the other teams. Reply speeches are not marked out of 100, they are marked out of 50. So an excellent speech again here garners the maximum points of 50. And an average speech again here garners half of half of the average main speech, which is 35%. So beforehand, we'll also share with you this WSDC scale. You will have it. Always refer to it. It's important. You might forget some of these things. So in every speech, when you're tallying the points for the teams and the speakers, always refer to this scale again. Always make sure that whatever points you're giving or whatever percentages you're giving to speakers really matches. Just a reminder, and probably this was touched on by my colleagues who did the trainings the 2 nights prior, is that debates are very competitive. And those students have put their effort, their blood and tears to train and to organize and to come for these tournaments. It's really incumbent upon you as judges. You've taken upon yourselves a huge responsibility, because you either give worthy points to a team that advances, or you give points to a team that is less deserving sometimes to advance at the expense of a team that was worthy of advancing, and all of these things. So that responsibility that you've taken upon yourselves, it is only prudent that you ensure you deliver to those kids. Be attentive as much as possible. Give it to your all. Ensure that you're really just doing what is expected of you. It's as simple as that. However, it's a huge responsibility, because those kids have put in their time. The best you could do is to really make it worth their time. So I've touched on scoring criteria, that is on content, on style, and on strategy. I've also touched now on the speaker scale. Just a reminder, maximum or an exceptional speech here garners a maximum of 80 in WSDC format, and a below average one garners just 60%. So how do you arrive at those? How do you arrive at the 60, which is a below average speech, and how do you ultimately arrive at 80%, which is an exceptional speech? So for 60, this is from a speaker whose content was really not relevant to the motion or what the team needs to prove. Again, relying on the same example of this house as the EAC member states would form one country. Maybe this is a speaker who comes and talks to us about let's say what about why we should maybe join the AU, why not the EAC, why these countries should break down and become the AU. Really, that is not what we're discussing. We're not discussing the AU, we're discussing the EAC. You should try and tell us why this countries, Tanzania, Uganda, should break down and form the EAC. So if this speaker is hell-bent on proving to us maybe from the affirmative team why it's better to join the AU, why it would make more sense for these countries to join the AU rather than the EAC, really he or she wouldn't be doing the job. So that is content that is really not relevant to the motion at hand. Equally, a speaker could come and make claims, and the claims could be making sense maybe, but he'll just drop them there, and there isn't any analysis that is given, no explanation on why these claims are really relevant to the debate, how they convince us of the team's line of choice of arguments, how they're contributing to their line of argumentation. It's just claims which are dropped with no analysis. Again, that's really a below average speech. Finally, also, if the speech is just too hard to follow, there is no coherence in argumentation, there is really hardly any analysis. The speaker just blabbers on and on about a particular thing that is of absolutely no relevance to the debate that we're having, then that is a below average speech. Yeah. So, and this goes up and slowly. So between 61 and 63, the speaker maybe makes a few marginally relevant claims. There is also no analysis that is provided in the claims. Parts of the speech are clear, but significant parts of the speech, if it was an 8-minute speech, maybe for 6 minutes you could hardly follow the speech, and for 2 minutes maybe. So even the content that comes out is really hard to measure on the impact that it has on the general debate. So for an average speech, which garners 70%, this is a speech that has no major shortfalls, no any really strong or captivating moments. Arguments are almost exclusively relevant, although may fail to address one or more core issues sufficiently. So a debate really is about how it happens in that room. One person could make claims, but if those claims are not examined within the debate and they do not become points of contention within the debate, it could be one of two things. Either those points are too good that teams did not have any material to engage with, and those points are super strong and super relevant, or they could be that those lines of arguments were really not that relevant to the debate. Teams did not see any reason to engage with them, and they weren't engaging in the debate, and people really did not try to rebut those points. So it could be one of those two. In the event that it is the second, most likely then that speech is just an average speech which has relevant claims to some sections of the debate, but not really which were captivating throughout the debate. Before I proceed, in the event that anybody has questions, I'm more than glad to answer them. Just unmute yourself and go ahead. Okay, I'll kindly increase your voice, please. Okay, I will. In the absence of any questions, I'll be proceeding. So when we move from the average speech, which is getting about 70%, slightly better at 71 and 72, our arguments are all relevant and address the core issues in the debate. And then the speech is also slightly more easier to follow. You can sort of make out the choice of line of argumentation that the speaker is making, and it's relevant to the debate. Again, closer to an excellent speech at about 77 to 79. These are arguments which are all relevant, which are all well illustrated and address the core issues in the debate with thorough explanations. So speakers, good speakers who might garner these points do something that is sometimes called iron manning. So it is sort of is when they make a claim, they try not just to analyze the claim they're making, they go ahead by telling us what the other team might say against this particular claim and why, and even if they say those claims will still be irrelevant, or rather the claims they have made will still outweigh those claims that those teams might make or might be coming to make. So it is sort of to presuppose what the other team is going to say and rebut even before they say it. So that is an excellent speech for most of the times. It is one that does not only analyze the claims that it is making, it's one that attempts to think what the other team might be thinking and go against it even before it's said in defense of the arguments that they have just advanced. Finally, a speech that you're going to give 80. It's very rare. I should make that very clear. So this will be a speech that is probably one of the best debating speeches ever given in a schools competition. So it is one that did not have any satisfactory response against it. One that maybe had the points that I was describing, that the points are so exceptionally good that and the analysis is deep, maybe 3-4 levels of analysis that the other teams do not even think of going against those arguments because they've just arrived dead with nothing to go against it. It's hardly unlikely that this is going to transpire in a lot of debates. Possible, but with very, very minimal percentage of possibilities. So that is a speech that will garner the highest points to be awarded in a WSDC debate format, which is at 80. So finally, on the thing that I am going to be touching on tonight, which is on scoring reply speeches. So when we were starting, I told you of reply speeches. Reply speeches garner a maximum of 50 points. They are marked out of 50. However, in WSDC, 40% is the highest that you could give to a speaker for reply speeches. So this is again the breakdown on how you are going to be scoring reply speeches. So for below average, which is going to have 30%, the speaker did not describe the debate as it happened. You must understand the purpose or the significance of reply speeches is to sort of summarize the debate tell us what were the main points of contention or the main clashes, how the speaker from the team, how their team stood out on those clashes, why they win on those clashes, is to sort of give a summary of that, of the debate as it happened within the room. So for a speaker who gets below average, that's 30, the debater did not describe the debate as it happened. They misunderstood or misrepresented central arguments or responses as they happened in the debate. So average, again, for reply speeches is 35%. So in this scenario, a speaker identified the major points of clashes between the two teams and was able to provide some basic justification for awarding the win to a speaker's team. So pointed out that these were the main points of clashes between our teams, ABC, and then just some average justification on maybe why they win on clash A, why they win on clash B, and maybe not even an enough explanation on why they win on clash C, or maybe even altogether not touched. So that is an average reply speech, and it will get a maximum of 35. Now, to an excellent one again here, that it gathers the maximum points of 40. This was a flawless analysis of the debate that just occurred. So the speaker was correctly pointed out all the major clashes between the team, identified maybe even clashes which were sort of still hanging, and even if they were still hanging, why the arguments advanced by their teams far much outweigh the opposing ideas advanced by the other teams on those particular clashes. They also identify maybe the strongest arguments or the strongest points which were made in the team, and why on those particular ones that become very contentious in the debate, why they win on those particular arguments. And even for some of the minor arguments, maybe which did not end up to be major clashes, why they win on those levels. So on a balance again, because a debate is always as it happened. We are comparing two teams. It is not as it ought to happen. I strongly believe that my colleagues, the two prior nights, must have discussed this with you, that as adjudicators, we might sometimes come to a debate room with our own biases or with our own understanding of particular issues or particular debate motions. Judges, we don't judge or we don't adjudicate speeches and debate as they ought to happen or as we thought they should happen. We judge this debate as they happened within that room. So it's a balance between two arguments or two lines of debate advanced by two teams. So you balance out those two, and then the team that carries the day is one that on those particular clashes, on a balance of probabilities, had the higher percentage. Any questions before I proceed? Any question, guys? Okay. This is becoming really one-sided. I would have appreciated if we were making it a discussion between ourselves. You could even ask me what my second name is, and then it'll break the monotony, and then we could proceed. Okay. So we've gone through all of that, and we'll share this scale with you throughout the debate. Please make use of them. They'll be quite important. Understand that one, you'll be making oral justification of, except for blind rounds, you'll be making oral justification of how and why you arrived at the decision the way you did. Ideally, this is made by the chair. Teams will expect you to justify your call, and they have every right to expect you to do that impeccably well. Beyond that, some teams might dispute the call that you've made, and they might come and raise complaints maybe to CAP and all of these other people. They'll still again be justified to make those justifications. So it is imperative that during when you're scoring teams and when you're scoring speakers, that you have ticked all the boxes and ensured that you deliver a watertight judgment, one that cannot be easily disputed, especially blatant mistakes will be an embarrassment on the tournament, and it will also be a dent really on your name and everything. So it's important that you listen properly and that you capture this as much as possible within the rules and within the speaker skill that we're going to provide to you. So POIs are important in a debate. They make up a great part of the debate session. So you should track POIs. You'll be expected to track POIs because POIs can sometimes make or break a debate. A very good POI could really disrupt the entire flow, the entire thinking of a team, and all of these things. So everything that happens within the 8 minutes of a speech is marked within the 3 categories that we had mentioned earlier, which is of content, style, and strategy. So even answers to POIs have to be factored in within those. So how well was it responded to will be on content. How well was the response analyzed will be on style. And then making even a joke or making the question seem like a rhetorical one could be strategy. Making seem the POI is one that is already answered, one that is defunct, one that serves no purpose in this debate could be strategy. And a good speaker could really make that out of a POI to try and sort of, and in a very respectful manner, please, in a very respectful manner, because it is not to mock the person who is asking the POI, but you could really make the person feel that the question is really defunct. It was maybe even answered in the speech of the first speaker, if maybe the POI is asked in the speech of the third speaker or the second speaker. So there's something we call POI adjustment. So POI adjustments, they carry a maximum of 2 points. So for very good POIs, you could add 2 points to the speaker. That is, if let's say the speech was just average, but the person asked a very decent POI, then you could give them an extra 2 points for that. Same happens to the response. If the speaker's speech was just an average speech of about 70 or 72, very good response to a POI that is asked could garner him a further 2 points. Similarly, on the negative, on deductions, it also happens that irrelevant or really not relevant to the debate POIs might make a speaker subtract 2 points, but you can't do it if the speech is already below average. So if you had already given the speaker 60 points, you cannot go further and deduct 2 more points to get them to 58. So minimum you can give is 60 even with the POI adjustment, and the maximum you can give for an excellent speech is 80. So we'll not allow for 82 because the POI was excellent and all of those things. So for average speeches is what we use POI adjustments for. So now on the variation between teams. So because you will be doing this and you'll be turning. So ideally what you're doing is first speaker 70, second speaker, let's say this is affirmative team. So first speaker 70, second speaker 72, third speaker 72. So now you have a total of 214 for that team. And then for the negative team, which you felt was winning, maybe you gave 75, 76, in another 75. So there's a difference. If this team is at 214, this other one is maybe at 220. So that is 6. So this margin gives you an allowance of what really is that variation between teams. So if one team is getting maybe a maximum of 210 points, and the other team is getting a maximum of 212, so that is between 0 and 2 points. That's a very close debate. Or one team is getting 210 and the other one is getting 211. So that is a very, very close debate in which both teams were really equal. If it was an average debate, all teams were really average. If it was an excellent debate, all teams were super excellent. And the variations were really came down into very, very minor things. And clashes were well addressed by both teams, and there were proper battles and there were proper POIs. So that is the variation that we would expect for very close debate rounds. So between 3 and 5 points was both teams were equally good. However, one team was slightly clearer that they had carried the day. So between 5 and 10 points, no doubt in your head, one team was clearly better, but they did not dominate. The other team put up a good and spirited fight. However, they were also clearly defeated. So again, if the variation between the two teams is between 10 and 20 points, winning team dominated the debate. They just they had a field day of some sorts. And finally, for a variation of 20 plus points, well, it was as if there was maybe just one team in the debate. Sorry, but without any disrespect, it's as if there was only one team that was debating, really. Guys, any question, any point of concern, anything? Okay. So now on ballot submission. So adjudicators, you will be submitting 2 ballots. So one will be an online ballot on Tabicat. Everyone will have a URL. The ideally, what happens is if you're a panel of 3 adjudicators, the chair or the chair mostly, yes, is the person who submits the ballot on behalf of the team of the panel of the adjudicators panel. It is generally expected that you will have a unanimous call, or sometimes you could have differing calls on the first, and then you might have a discussion amongst yourselves, and then you might arrive. One might be rolled over, one might not be rolled over. By rolling over, I mean you're convinced of the call that is probably made by the other 2 judges if you are by yourself. And so that's how it happens after the debate ends. Of course, I want to believe you guys have done this before. So after the debate ends, you go through your notes and then you arrive at a call. So chair is the last person to announce his call. The other, if you're a panel of 3, the other 2 people, if there's a trainee, the trainee starts off by announcing their call, and then the panelist, and then the chair. And then you have that discussion to arrive at whatever call. In the event that the chair is rolled over, in the event that the chair is convinced otherwise, except the call that he or she had made initially, it will be expected that those who rolled over will also make the oral justification, that they will explain to the debaters why they arrived at the decision they arrived at. So you will be submitting 2 ballots. So one will be an e-ballot on Tabicat, and then the other one will be a paper ballot, which you'll be submitting at the end of the round to OCOM members, and really not necessarily OCOM, to TAB people, to the teams at TAB for their tallying and for record keeping and all of those things. So the procedure is that you complete the e-ballot first. Why is this important? This tournament. Sorry. Okay. this debate run on online platforms. So second round cannot happen, or the draw for the second or the third round cannot happen except when all ballots have been submitted. So we submit the e-ballot first, one, to make the work of tab people easy, and to just have a smooth running tournament. So it's expected that you submit that e-ballot first, even before you make your oral justification, so that tab people can proceed with the draws for the preceding rounds. So after you submit or you complete the e-ballot, and then you complete the paper ballot, ensuring that it matches the e-ballot. If affirmative team was winning and they had 210 points, Shalom, do you want to ask something? Okay. So if you had in your e-ballot, you had submitted that affirmative team was winning with 215 points, the same, and the breakdown was maybe 70, 72, and 73, you will be expected that your paper ballot also matches your e-ballot. So once everyone on the team has completed on the panel, has completed their ballot, they give it to chair, and chair submits it on behalf of that panel to tab people. So there is a sample. There is a sample of a paper ballot sample. So you could just go through. So you write the round, the date, and then the motion. So proposition, this will be team A, maybe second ballot for opposition, and sorry, proposition team name, and then down there for opposition team name. So team A, team B, first speaker, out of 40 for style, out of 40 again for content, and out of 20 for strategy. In the event that was any PI adjustment, plus minus 2, and then the total out of 100. So that's the breakdown, and there is equally same for the opposition. So, and then down there you write the winning team, your name, and you will sign. I want to believe that every ballot will be also coming with the marking scale. It will be important. If not, please have a printout of this and use it, refer to it as much as possible, ensuring that all of your calls really match up to that. Here is equally a sample of an e-ballot. The good thing about Tabicat is that it will, in the event that there is an error, it will not allow you. So it will not allow the ballot. It will tell you that there is an error. So if maybe teams, if you tie teams, it will notify you. If the points that you have given for speaker A and speaker B, first speaker and second speaker and the third speaker don't tally to maybe what you had put as the final, it will also give you a notification of the same. So you can have a look. That's how it looks as well. So it will also tell you that the team that won is maybe affirmative or proposition or opposition. You could confirm that green color here will tell you won and then lost. So you counter confirm that indeed your call, what you told the debaters in the oral justification, is equally what you submit. If you had informed the debaters in the room that team affirmative was winning, that is equally what you submit on your ballot. So on effective feedback, my colleague will pick it up from there tomorrow, inshallah. That is the end of my presentation. In the event that you guys have any questions, I'm more than glad again to answer them. We are done. Yes, Victor, go on. Just unmute yourself and then speak, please. Yeah, the guys raising your hands, please just unmute yourselves and proceed. Victor, was it? Thank you, Calvin. You're very welcome. Okay, guys. So, in the absence of any questions, I want to believe we had a fruitful one. I wish all of you the very best. Hopefully, see you soon, inshallah. Bye bye.